Mediocre League assemble! I am Lord Stark, host of the now cancelled Game of Thrones review show, Stark Raving. Hello, I'm the reviewer. Oh dear. I'm the Time Lord host of You Know Who, and if my ratings keep slipping to the level of Stark Raving, I'll be unemployed too! Oh, crumbs. Oh, work, damn you. Oh, I am Cloak Number One, a minor supporting character from a sloppy internet comedy adventure. It was sort of like Maces and Monsters, but without the charm. Yes, it's the Mediocre League. We'll literally give any superheroes their own movies these days. Coming soon to a theater near you. Welcome back to Comic Book Issues. I'm your host, the Last Angry Geek. 10 years ago, a comic book came out that changed everything. It put its writer on the map and made its artist one of the most sought-after illustrators in the comic book field. And that comic was Young Avengers. Today we're reviewing Great Lakes Avengers. But it did come out 10 years ago, you gots to give me that! For a time, splitting a team up via geography was a cool thing to do. The Justice League of America went international with the European branch. The Avengers kept a watch on things in New York, but also established a West Coast branch. It was in West Coast Avengers that we first met the Great Lakes Avengers. There was the one who looked like Mr. Fantastic, the one who looked like Spider-Man in his black costume, and the rest. Full of good intentions, but not practical experience. Hawkeye and his then-wife Mockingbird agreed to mentor the group, but the team mostly languished in obscurity, forever protecting the Midwest. Okay, truth? I live just outside of Chicago. I know most people hear Chicago and they think of gangsters and corrupt politicians, but honestly, the worst thing that ever happened to me there was a guy once tried to sell me a hot CD player. Now, the Great Lakes Avengers operate out of Wisconsin, so imagine all the excitement of Chicago that I just described to you and eliminate it. Welcome to the Midwest. Written by Dan Slott and drawn by Paul Pelletier, this is Great Lakes Avengers number 1. The book opens with Squirrel Girl and her rodent sidekick, Monkey Joe. She's warning us not to engage in any of the questionable actions we see in this book, especially what Mr. Immortal tries on page 8. She's joined by the Grasshopper. He's not officially in the book until next issue, so he thought he'd join her for some FaceTime. When she tells him she's warning the kids who read the book, Grasshopper points out that only overweight nerds with no chance of getting laid read comics. As a portal in the background sucks up Flatman and Big Bertha, Mr. Immortal shoots his brains out. Mr. Immortal, or Craig Hollis as he's known, flashes back to his birth, his mother watching over him. She asks a mysterious man in black to watch over her son. The man wearing skis flies her through a portal, as Mr. Immortal's father is told his wife died in childbirth. That was the first time he met Death Urge. As Craig grows up, he's constantly put in danger by his imaginary friend, Death Urge. At age 8, he's convinced to play with matches, starting a fire that kills his dad. He's sent to a foster home, where his foster father beats him, but falls in love with his foster sister, Terry. They eventually move in together, but one night Terry leaves him a note. Craig, deciding he has nothing left to live for, jumps off his building. Which, Monkey Joe reminds us, is stupid, because then you can't eat nuts or be happy. Craig hit hard, but, strangely enough, survived. He keeps trying to end his life, but keeps surviving when it hits him. This is a superpower! He can be a superhero! Reborn as Mr. Immortal, he stops a jewel store robbery and is promptly shot in the head, allowing the thieves to get away. Then it hits him. A team might be the way to go. He puts an ad in the paper and assembles a team. They could be the Milwaukee Avengers or the Wisconsin Avengers, but Mr. I thinks bigger. They're the Great Lakes Avengers. Doorman, a living interdimensional portal. Flatman, a two-dimensional hero. Big Bertha, a supersized example of female empowerment. And Dinosaur, a super-evolved dinosaur. The other guy who showed up for the tryouts was Leatherboy. He misunderstood the ad in the paper asking for men and women in costumes with special talents. We then jump to the team in the present day. They spend most of their time playing hearts. They get a call from Big Bertha on her civilian identity as supermodel Ashley Crawford. The convention center is under attack by supervillains, the Animen, mutated animals. Ashley bulges out and gets into the fray as Bertha. The GLA pile into the Avengers Quinjetta. But by the time they've arrived, the real Avengers are there putting a hurt on the zoo crew.
Sir, I represent DC Comics, and even though the characters in this comic were clearly marked as the Animen, who are Marvel's intellectual property, you refer to them as the Zoo Crew, as in DC's intellectual property, Captain Carrot and the Amazing Zoo Crew. We've got you on camera for copyright infringement.
All right, I'll write you a check.
What was that?
Oh, I just said you wrote my... Told to sit up by the A-listers, Mr. Impossible is depressed. Alone with his lover Dinah, he tells her he thinks it's time to end the GLA. However, before he can break the bad news, the events of Avengers Disassembled happen. The Avengers are done and Hawkeye is dead. Surprisingly, Immortal takes this as great news. They're the last remaining Avengers team, so they're the A-listers. He takes them on patrol when their police scanner informs them of a supervillain breaking into the University of Wisconsin. They find the energy-manipulating Avengers villain Maelstrom. He zaps Mr. I with lightning, and Dinah looks after him as the rest of the team moves in. Dinah comforts him. Her people are ageless. No matter what else happens, she and Immortal will have each other as the centuries tick by. Then she's fried by a lightning blast, killed instantly. Maelstrom warns them away from his plans, lest they die too. Death Urge arrives, and Matt flashes back to the note Terry left him. Not a Dear John note, but a suicide note. Death Urge came for her, and again, Craig was left behind as the ones he loved were taken away. He screams for Death Urge to take him for once, but the rest of the Avengers can see nothing. They can only care for their friend. We then jump back to the beginning as Mr. Immortal's about to shoot himself. He hopes this time his death will be permanent. Issue 2 opens with Squirrel Girl surprised to see us back. This book is too dark and she prefers comics that act as escapism. Don't be like Mr. Immortal downloading comics for free. But I need these images for my reviews!
At Dinah's funeral, Mr. Immortal goes ballistic at his unseen companion. Doorman wonders if it's Flatman. Sometimes at the proper angle you can't see him. Like how? Mr. Immortal tries to trounce Death Urge, who reminds him that he's not real but a living embodiment of death before proceeding to kick Craig's butt. As his friends watch, concerned that he's gone nuts, Flatman, aka Dr. Val Ventura, deputy leader, knows that the GLA must press on. As Maelstrom begins to finish his device, his run-in with the Great Lakes Avengers has him worried about superhero involvement. He places a call to Batroc the Leaper and some other low-level costume mercenaries to protect him as he goes about his business. At her modeling agency, Ashley is upset that she isn't getting better-paying gigs. After all, she pays for the Great Lakes Avengers base and equipment. But Wisconsin is a dead end in modeling. Her agent would love to ship her off to Paris or Milan, but it would mean leaving the GLA behind. Doorman and Flatman decide the best thing for the GLA is to beef up their roster with new recruits. In New York City, Roxxon researcher Doug Taggart is flying through the air in his super armor as the Grasshopper. He spots Batroc and his men and decides to move in. Flat and Door start at Thunderbolt's headquarters. They're pretty sure the new swordsman is actually their thought-to-be-dead buddy Hawkeye, something he strenuously denies. That's just a rumor. Well, we're not picky.
I should point out that the swordsman eventually turned out to be Andreas Strucker, a mutant Nazi who could fire energy blasts so long as he was touching his sister's skin. When she was murdered, he skinned her, tanned her flesh, and wrapped it around the hilt of his sword in order to keep his powers. Now, if you can sleep soundly after thinking about that, congratulations. You're a sociopath.
They try and recruit Moon Knight, but publicity is the last thing a vigilante like him wants. In fact, just about every A-lister turns them down. Even Katie from Power Pack knows she can do better. They get a nibble from the Living Lightning, but he mistook GLA for the Gay and Lesbian Alliance. After a string of rejections so long you'd think the question is, do you want a cameo on comic book issues? Flatman and Doorman find themselves in Central Park. They're about to be mugged when Squirrel Girl and Monkey Joe pounce and take out the muggers. She's kept Central Park safe once again. They quickly ask if she'd like to join, and surprisingly, she accepts. The trio then hear an alarm go off and decide to head for the danger. Grasshopper is trashing the Mercs. The GLA quickly step in and offer Grasshopper a place in the Great Lakes Avengers. However, they don't notice when one of the Mercs throws a sigh.
Sigh? See? No, we're not doing that joke again. I got it on my system with the you-know-who Time Heist review. Let's just move on.
The sigh passes through Doorman and impales the Grasshopper. He's stone dead. Bereft of life, he rests in peace. This is an ex-Grasshopper. The Mercs escape in the confusion and Death Urge takes away Grasshopper. Squirrel Girl is getting the idea that this is a team of lemons, but figures that just means it's lemonade time. We cut back to the present where Flatman realizes he's pulling Bertha in with him, so he lets go. Issue 3 opens with Squirrel Girl and Bertha upset at how women are portrayed in comics. They're anatomically inaccurate, and rape and violence against women is treated as little more than a story trope. Bertha says this is because comic book writers are bald losers who don't get any.
It is too late to apologize for that crack about comic book readers, Mr. Slott. Besides, you'll need to save your apologies for when you're writing The Amazing Spider-Man in a few years.
In the present, a psychotic Squirrel Girl is leading an army of squirrels against the Mercs as Big Bertha grabs onto Flatman's head.
We see that earlier in the day, Bertha saved a bunch of school children. While the crossing guard lamented that she wasn't one of the hot superheroines, she snuck back to her modeling gig. It turns out nobody suspects a thing when a supermodel goes into the bathroom and makes some retching noises. Monkey Joe reminds us we can complain to Marvel about bulimia jokes. Ashley's photo shoot is interrupted by video footage of the GLA begging heroes to join. When even Captain Ultra says no, that says something. Although the TV anchors do congratulate Squirrel Girl for coming to Wisconsin. In a dark chamber, a man in a familiar green cape smashes the TV screen. Squirrel Girl actually has just arrived, but is still put off by Grasshopper's death, even though Flatman is sure someone else will take his armor and hero anew. He tries to downplay the number of dead members they have, even as Doorman points out that it's about a 40% mortality rate. The first impression gets worse as Mr. Mortal comes in drunk and impaled on a giant pair of scissors. Death Urge watches all of this, sure of Craig's eventual destiny, before returning to Maelstrom. Mael wants to know if Death Urge is here to serve him again. As an agent of the cosmic entity Oblivion, Death Urge will serve any who faithfully worship his master. During recent adventures, Maelstrom had his mind expanded beyond and then contracted back to mortal levels. He's glimpsed the secrets of the universe. The universe has a secret purpose, and with the machine he's building, he will unlock that secret, even though Death Urge warns this could end everything. Flatman and Doorman head out to investigate the thefts by the mercenaries in Maelstrom, but Squirrel Girl wants to go with. They can leave Monkey Joe on monitor duty. He's a very capable squirrel. After all, Monkey Joe once defeated Dr. Doom. From the bushes, a very familiar figure watches as the heroes get in their Jetta. At her modeling agency shoot, Ashley knows her ability to reshape her body fat can turn her into any man's dream girl or a super-insulated powerhouse. She wants to make a difference, but to date, the GLA's biggest victory was defeating a Christmas-themed robot. Is it worth her time and money to keep financing the GLA? The science team at the University of Wisconsin explains that the stolen parts could be used to speed up or slow down the forward progression of time. The professor is honored to have helped Reed Richards, until it's pointed out that was actually Flatman. As a candy receptionist keeps the GLA out of Roxxon's boardrooms, Doorman apologizes for constantly freaking out Squirrel Girl with all his death talk. He just feels guilty for Grasshopper's death and was trying to scare her off. She accepts his apology and offers him one of her nuts. She explains to Doorman that she keeps her nuts in her nutsack.
Oh, go ahead and laugh. It doesn't all have to be Shakespeare.
A frustrated Flatman uses Doorman's power to get into the Roxxon executive's office. However, the information he wanted was freely available on their company website. As Monkey Joe is looking up the info, a man in armor and a green cloak snaps Mr. Immortal's neck. It's Dr. Doom, and he quickly kills Monkey Joe. Driving home, Ashley has an epiphany. She's happy here, with her small-time modeling gigs and friends who look past her outside appearance and appreciate her for who she is. She arrives at the GLA headquarters and screams at what she sees. Back in the present, Bertha loses her grip and Flatman is sucked into the mysterious portal. At the start of issue 4, a despondent Squirrel Girl no longer wants to go on. Monkey Joe is dead. Examining his remains, Flatman has found a footprint on his brain.
No. I put up with a lot of crap on this show. Bad lighting, Rob Liefeld, Halcyon, innumerable cameos by less talented producers.
Hey!
But I draw the line at Identity Crisis. That was the stupidest piece of retconning garbage I ever read. I figured out the killer halfway through.
Monkey Joe likewise has had enough and tears up the comics. Go out and live! Doorman introduces himself to us as Damar Davis. He's a mutant teleporter, insofar as he can teleport you one room over from where he's standing. He's also dead. We flash back to the GLA driving home. Flatman theorizes that with the equipment he's stolen, Maelstrom could cycle the universe past its expansion and into an eventual collapse, the opposite of the Big Bang, the cosmic crunch. They find Big Bertha sitting on Dr. Doom. The leather armor is a new change.
No, I should point out that Dr. Doom's leather armor was from a Fantastic Four story by Mark Waid and the late Mike Waringo, where he traded science in for a complete mastery of magic. Look, I'm sorry to keep interrupting, but a lot of things happened 10 years ago you're going to need to know about to understand what's going on now. Look, I promise this is my last interruption until the story's over.
They unmask Doom, and it's actually Leatherboy, the team's original rejected member. Bertha explains he was so upset by the GLA getting new members instead of asking him to rejoin, he showed up to kill Mr. Immortal and toast Monkey Joe. Monkey Joe's ghost bids us farewell, and hey, eat more nuts. The leather Doom armor is just the latest look in the bondage community. Death Urge in squirrel form arrives for Joe, only for Craig to grab him. Flatman gets upset when Doorman asks if the bondage thing is part of the gay community. As Mr. Immortal struggles with Death Urge, Flatman explains there are plenty of heterosexuals into bondage, finally blurting out that he is gay. Tied up, Craig demands answers out of Death Urge. Even the various gods of this reality can be killed. Not Craig. Mr. Mortal will live past lovers, friends, soulmates. He will outlast every other life form in existence and learn the great secret that will be revealed at the end of the universe. He is not Homo sapien, not Homo superior. He is Homo supreme. Please stop giggling. Flatman is feeling good about finally coming out till Craig announces his new identity. Death Urge has spilled the beans. In 36 minutes, Maelstrom will activate his device and destroy all of reality. His base is at the bottom of Lake Michigan. They rally Squirrel Girl by reminding her that this will wipe out the squirrel population, and she lets loose a battle cry. Maelstrom raises his base from the lake. He's built it in Wisconsin to avoid superheroes, but his mercs stand by since there are always superheroes. As Maelstrom surrounds himself with a force field that will age anyone to death if they step through. Squirrel Girl summons an army of bloodthirsty squirrels who run over the mercs, causing one of them to drop a gun, quickly picked up by Mr. Immortal. Doorman sacrifices himself to the force field in order to teleport Mr. Immortal inside. Mr. Eye draws on him, but it's useless. Maelstrom points out that he's composed of the energy used to create and destroy matter. When Craig admits Death Urge told him this, Maelstrom is intrigued. In about 2 minutes, the universe should collapse in on itself. The fight between the mercenaries and GLA stops as everyone begins to get sucked into Maelstrom's portal. Squirrel Girl only manages to save one of her furry friends. Now dead, Doorman finds himself attending a card game with all the GLA's dead members, although Mockingbird says Hawkeye isn't there because he's obviously the new swordsman.
Actually, Mockingbird would be revealed to be alive this whole time during Secret Sorry. Go on.
Damar is then summoned before Oblivion. He senses that Doorman summons his power from the Dark Dimension, a universe of infinite darkness but unlimited energy, and has a use for him. Maelstrom explains he has the right to destroy the universe. He's overcome much as the hybrid between two ancient enemy species. Craig's guessed that that's made him lonely, and when he destroys everything else, he'll be alone. What if that's the secret, that without others there's no point to living? Maelstrom will be trapped in a depressing, solitary existence. Craig's not sticking around for that, and blows his brains out. With nothing left to lose, Maelstrom kills himself. A moment later, a revived Mr. Immortal hits the kill switch on Maelstrom's machine. As Flatman's gloved hands fly into the portal, Bertha sees the skies return to blue. As Squirrel Girl bonds with her new friend, Craig comforts Ashley, but it turns out Flatman is alive. He was just standing at an odd angle so they couldn't see him. It was his costume that got sucked in. Before Mr. Immortal can break the news about Doorman, one of Death Urge's portals opens, and Damar comes out with skis and a cape. He's got a new gig and takes away the dumbfounded Maelstrom before returning to headquarters. Flatman's upset they got no publicity out of saving the world, and on top of that, the Avengers are threatening to sue them if they keep calling themselves Avengers. However, they've realized that they've all gotten their powers because they're mutants. That means the Great Lakes Avengers are dead, but the Great Lakes X-Men are here to stay. As Squirrel Girl's new mascot Tippy Toe says, it's time to dance.
So listen, I've learned from all this, squirrels are infinitely replaceable. This was written by Dan Slott just as he was making his name at Marvel with She-Hulk, but before he eroded all that goodwill by becoming the writer of Amazing Spider-Man. So where does this book stand? Is it the shining example of what you can do with D-list characters, or is it a D-list book with A-list creators? Let's take a closer look.
First and foremost, this is a very funny book. It takes the notion of the useless superhero team and just runs with it. But overall, this is a pretty inconsequential book, although that's not the kind of thing you can tell right away after reading a book. It's the benefit of time and hindsight. Nothing more would come from the GLA outside of some guest appearances and 2 more one-shots. A Christmas special and a summer special that they co-starred in with Deadpool. But not amounting to anything, that's pretty true to their nature. This series could be their one great moment in the sun. With the Avengers dead and an unexpectedly powerful supervillain in Wisconsin, they step up and save the day, making peace with their own doubts as they do and becoming better heroes as a result. Dinah is quickly written out and used as a reason for Mr. Immortal to fall into depression. He's pretty much a non-factor until the end of the story, but the idea that his immortality is a sort of preordained destiny is a pretty clever conceit. The quick introduction and even quicker death of Grasshopper was a running theme in the GLA books, and a new version would return and die in the next 2 specials. Doorman and Flatman were the go-to players of the middle issues, but don't really have much to do. Flatman's coming out was a bit out of nowhere. Big Bertha, struggling with her fame and success balanced against the team's continuing failure and mediocrity, is a nice balance for the book. But by far the breakout star to come out of this was the revived Squirrel Girl. She even got so popular that creative vampire Brian Michael Bendis sucked her out of this team and injected her into the New Avengers as the nanny for Luke Cage's baby daughter. When I call Bendis a vampire, it's because he's done this several times before, taken other creators' characters and used them for his own titles. While the story is solid and well written, I can say that it's funny, not hilarious. I found myself smirking at times, but never laughed out loud. But then I've never had an LOL moment when reading comics. But then, I don't read comics for humor, but action and adventure. The art by Paul Pelletier is excellent as always. Paul was already an established artist by this point, so he didn't need to find himself when he got the new book. He could just jump right in and nail the look.
After this, he'd go on to Guardians of the Galaxy, The Incredible Hulk, and his current run on DC's Aquaman. And he did some of the best covers of his career, especially his spoof of New Avengers #1, and this splash page was one of the best I've ever seen. Overall, it shows off Slott's writing as an up-and-coming talent. It takes the humor he used in She-Hulk and shows off the action and character work he'd eventually debut in Avengers: The Initiative before graduating to Amazing Spider-Man. This book is solid and funny, but 10 years later it's hard to see it as anything but a quirky little miniseries from a time when Marvel was more willing to take chances. It's good, not great. Looking back on this title, the Great Lakes Avengers may have ended up as a footnote on a famous writer's career, but then the GLA has made a history out of being a footnote. I give Great Lakes Avengers issues 1 through 4 3.5 stars out of 5. And knowing that I've earned my place as a footnote on the internet, I'll see you next time on Comic Book Issues. I'm your host, the Last Angry Geek.
Okay.
Who's this asshole?
This is Last Angry Geek. It's Brian. It's Brian.
Just kidding, because you're saying that we're lesser people.
Very, very, very nice young man. All right.